The aviation industry is completely dominated by the Airbus-Boeing duopoly. In fact, the two companies account for 88% of the commercial aircraft market. To capture the largest possible share of this lucrative market, both giants continually push technological boundaries, investing considerable resources in research and development. They are exploring bold innovations, such as new engines with the 737 MAX or A320neo, hydrogen propulsion, and even folding wings. However, what truly sets Airbus apart from its competitors has nothing to do with these technologies. In fact, this competitive advantage has existed for decades and has allowed Airbus to win countless orders over the years. Now, before I tell you exactly what Airbus's secret weapon is, let's take a look at an Airbus cockpit. Can you guess which model it is? Is it the A320, A330, A350, or A380? Alright, now that you've taken a look, were you able to determine the type of Airbus aircraft? Well, it turns out it's actually a trick question. What I just showed you is not the cockpit of a single Airbus aircraft. It was a mix of nearly all of them. Unless you are an experienced Airbus pilot, there's a good chance you couldn't tell the difference, and that's entirely intentional. You see, the secret weapon I'm referring to, the one that gives Airbus such an advantage, is cockpit commonality. It's the practice of using the same systems, interfaces, and cockpit configuration across different aircraft types. Both Boeing and Airbus use this practice to some extent. For example, the cockpits of the 737 MAX and the 737NG are almost the same, and this is also true for the A320 and A320neo. But what you might not realize is just how far Airbus takes this practice and how deeply it permeates its entire business philosophy. Their cockpits aren't just similar within individual families, but across the entire product line, from the relatively small A320 to the biggest aircraft in Airbus portfolio, the A380. Alright, so how deep are these similarities? Are they only cosmetic? Well, no. When you enter an Airbus cockpit, the controls are very similar for the pilot. You'll find the same side stick, the same throttle levers, the same flap lever, and the same speed brakes. The primary displays look alike, as do the flight directors, navigation display, and the way weather and terrain are shown. It's pretty much the same across the fleet. So it appears that Airbus's common cockpit architecture is far more than an appearance. For a pilot, this makes life much easier. Airbus's cockpit design philosophy not only pleases pilots, but also greatly benefits airlines. Crew training, which can cost tens of millions of dollars annually, represents a colossal burden. The standardization of Airbus cockpits helps alleviate this load. To provide some context, it typically takes about 5 weeks for a new pilot to obtain type certification on a commercial aircraft, and this period is similar if a pilot switches from one manufacturer's aircraft to another. In contrast, moving from one model to another within the Airbus family is a much smoother and more efficient process. When a pilot is transitioning, the only thing they need to learn is how to manage all the information, how to access it, how to organize it. So, when you are qualified on the A330 or A350, you take an additional 8-day course and can be certified on both aircraft under the same type rating. Of course, the A330 and A350 are quite similar in size, but even if you go, for example, from the small A320 to the gigantic A380, the process is still relatively short. This isn't just due to the similarity of their cockpits, but also to their fly-by-wire controls. The result is that if you are an Airbus pilot, every Airbus jet will operate and maneuver similarly, meaning that even if you move from a small Airbus to a large one, it only requires 3 extra days of training. This cockpit standardization benefits not only airlines, but also passengers by reducing pilot training costs and time. Airlines can then invest more in enhancing passenger experience, such as better onboard amenities and improved customer service. Additionally, the increased familiarity of pilots with cockpit systems improves flight safety, reducing the risk of human errors. Let's move on to the crucial question: how does this actually impact an airline's bottom line? Optimizing pilots' flight time rather than classroom training represents a more efficient use of resources. Airbus claims that cockpit standardization can improve pilot productivity by 2%. This may seem minimal, but when considering that airlines spend tens of millions of dollars annually on crew training, a 2% savings becomes significant. And that's only the beginning of potential savings. As you know, every small saving in aviation matters. For example, one pilot could operate both the A320 and the A380 in what we call a mixed fleet flying configuration. This concept is self-explanatory. It allows pilots from one airline to fly different types of aircraft within the same fleet, such as both the A350 and A330. This approach greatly improves pilot productivity, allows airlines to reduce their total pilot workforce, and provides greater flexibility in schedule planning. This is where the magic lies. In airlines that use this type of setup, going beyond cross-qualification of crews and fully leveraging mixed fleet flying, we observe up to a 15% increase in pilot productivity. Additionally, this can generate up to $8 million in profit per aircraft. These savings are obviously substantial for airlines. Multiplying $8 million per aircraft by a fleet of hundreds yields significant figures. It's no surprise that companies like Thai Airways, Scandinavian Airlines, and Iberia have remained loyal to Airbus. Each of these companies purchased its first Airbus jet years ago and continues to buy more to keep costs low. This is a huge win for Airbus. By creating this ecosystem, they have successfully fostered repeat buyers. Current Airbus customers already benefit from cockpit standardization, but another group could gain even more: the startup airlines. Thanks to Airbus's cockpit standardization, the new airlines can simultaneously operate wide-body and narrow-body aircraft without the need to invest millions in separate training facilities and personnel for many aircraft types. An example of such an airline is Starlux from Taiwan, and with the wide introduction of the A321XLR, this trend will only increase, with a positive result for passengers who will benefit from even lower ticket prices. It's clear that cockpit standardization is a huge advantage for Airbus and its customers. You may wonder if Boeing has a similar solution. In short, the answer is sort of. They maintain some consistency within their product line. For example, the cockpits of the 757, 767, and 777 are quite similar. However, unlike Airbus, whose cockpit design dates back to the A320, Boeing doesn't have such a legacy. But the company wants to change that. Their upcoming 777X shares much of its cockpit architecture with the 787, and it seems they are considering basing their future cockpit design on that of the Dreamliner. Nevertheless, their most popular aircraft, the 737, is a challenge. The basic architecture of the 737 cockpit has changed a little since the 1960s and differs significantly from that of the 787. With the introduction of the infamous 737 MAX, Boeing tried to change that, but it's still far behind Airbus. One is certain. Until Boeing moves away from the 737 family, Airbus will likely continue to benefit from its advantage in cockpit standardization. This distinct advantage should help them secure future contracts. What do you think? Is cockpit standardization Airbus's greatest competitive asset, or is there something else? Write now in the comments below. And as always, please like and subscribe for more.